Hey there, Lindsay. How are you today? You're got to turn off your.
There, that should do it.
There you go. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Great.
Awesome. Now I'm not sure Barb is coming today because I think she's with her daughter in Tennessee, and I wasn't sure. I wasn't quite clear whether she was going to be able to make it or not.
Okay.
Give me 1 second here. How are you?
A little tired, but
Oh yeah, what's that? What's that about?
just a lot to do the past week between work and some volunteer work and some other things. Just been very busy, but I'm all right.
Well, that's good. It's good to be busy as long as we don't to the point where we can't deal.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Thank you for being patient.
Sure.
All right. So, we're going to get started. I'm going to record this session since I forgot to record the last session. Or maybe I did. I have to check. I'm going to do, you got my message, right? That not to worry about the class. Jan is going to do a class next week, hopefully, if nothing comes up for her.
Okay.
She is one of my trainers. I don't know if I've talked about her. She's 75, and her 48-year-old daughter died this fall.
Wow.
And from lupus. She had lupus pretty much all her life and left 3, small children, and it was just very, very hard. And so Jan is she hasn't done a training. I took over her trainings for her, so I had to travel a lot to do her trainings that she had already scheduled, but she hasn't scheduled any more now. She's supposed to do one in June. I'm not, she hasn't even started publicizing it, so I'm not sure. I know she's got a couple of people wanting to do it. I'm not sure she's going to go through with that. So she's been sort of in and out, and so we'll see what happens next Wednesday. Hopefully it's a good day for her and she'll be here. Hey there, Revital. How are you? Can we hear you?
Hi.
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 How are you? Good that you made it today.
Yeah, I made it.
Awesome. So we were just talking about what's happening next week. I've invited a trainer, one of the ZENgevity trainers, Jan Cunningham, who lives in New Hampshire. And she was my first trainer. She's done the most of the trainings, but she's 75. And she lost her 48-year-old daughter in October, just this last October, to lupus. And so I covered for her trainings for the couple of months that she had scheduled, but she's not doing any new trainings. So she's still in her grief and in trying to, figure out what's going on for her. So she is planning to be here next Wednesday to do a class for us, which would be a blast because she's a great teacher. She was I think she was, I forget what kind of, I guess elementary school maybe. For 30 years, she was a teacher in the classroom. So she took to ZENgevity and has done fantastic she's been with me for about 8 years now. So hopefully she'll make it. Sometimes things come up for her, if, her grief comes up and she just can't do something, she won't. But let's hope that she can make it next week. Yes?
I have a question. Do you have any, I know that it might be a rough question, but do you have any techniques that you're familiar with to extend or the telomeres?
To extend the what?
Telomeres.
I'm not sure what that is. Can you?
What? The telomeres in the DNA.
End caps of the DNA.
The end caps?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. No. I'm not familiar with that too much. We don't do anything with the DNA in ZENgevity. We stick right with, the brain fitness components, and mostly around dual tasking and neuroplasticity. So those are the things that we really focus on. We don't go into real depth, okay, and especially in this first training. In advanced training, we cover more in depth in terms of the 5 pillars, remember? So the physical and the mind, those 2 for this training. We go into emotions and spirit in the 3rd and 4th training. And then we talk about energy in the 5th training. So, but I don't really go into a depth around, in terms of DNA or brain logic or mapping or any of those things. So,
well, the thing is that when it comes to longevity, your longevity is basically your lifespan, right? Okay, so what has been proven so far that the telomeres are those who are responsible for the ability of the body to rejuvenate, and not even to rejuvenate, basically to sustain its, juvenity. I don't know, just to sustain its to sustain itself, to just not to grow old, so to say, and I think I am sure that there is a way to communicate with the telomeres through the cellular communication that can come from our mind if we set it up properly, and not only by how to say that, medical or any other intervention.
yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and absolutely, I agree with you. But in the latest, any research that you have, you think would be helpful to ZENgevity or to me, please forward to me. Okay.
It's not a research; it's experience. Because I know that my lifespan's supposed to be beyond the average, and I'm very much understanding that the biological age of the body can be reversed.
Yes, there's no question about that. And the research that I've seen has shown that, we all have a DNA longevity span, right? That's genetically
but
there.
we can,
and that's, often hereditary and those kinds of things. But what they found is that's not necessarily, it's only a portion of
right.
that. And it's actually a fairly small portion. When they first discovered it, they thought, oh, wow, this is the key, but it's not. And so they found that what you eat and what, how you move and all of the things that we do, and on a cell. And so I think you are like a light year ahead of everybody that's doing research in this area, that you're looking at the cellular as a method to connect or communicate with the telomeres, right? And so, so that's a long discussion, and today we want to cover what we need to cover in our time. But I think that's a wonderful discussion to have, and I'd be open to having that discussion with you, because I'm very much a believer in communicating with our minds cellularly, with the rest of our bodies. In fact, when we do, remember the 5 pillars, when we do the spiritual and the energetic in ZENgevity, we talk a lot about that. For example, I'll use my own personal case as an example. I got cancer back in the year 2000. I got liposarcoma, which is a pretty rare cancer. It's usually the only thing that they can find a connector to is the use of sodium lauryl sulfate. So there's a huge incidence of liposarcoma in people who work in factories that produce sodium lauryl sulfate. Now, sodium lauryl sulfate is in deodorants, shampoos. It's the foaming agent. It's what makes things foam, okay? So I lived, when I was a child, in an area that was superfunded, the EPA, because of sodium lauryl sulfate. So I've always believed that my environmental situation and history led to the creation of that disease, right? And I believed that I could change that. And so I worked very hard so for example, I did have the tumor removed, which happened to be in my chest cavity and came out through my armpit. And what happened, but I did not choose radiology. Okay, because I just felt that that would not, I mean, I had 3 radiologists telling me, yes, do that. I had one who said, save the big guns for the big battles. And so I chose that option. And also I started doing a macrobiotic diet at the time. And I practiced a lot of that, communicating with my cells, right? So before the surgery, I was doing all of that work, a lot of meta work, right? And when the, so they did a, biopsy. They took a biopsy sample of the tumor, which, you know, that was the reason I had to go do the surgery to have the removal. Well, they went in to do the removal. It was still showing up on the x-ray, but the tumor was gone. Okay. Now, that tells me that there is a lot of power in people who really focus at a cellular level. So you're preaching to the choir here. I totally get it.
You know, it's funny that you say that because at the beginning of the century, you know, right around the year 2000, when I was receiving my healing master, I was asking my healing master, what's your specialty? What you're so good with? You know, what are you all about? And he said to me, cellular communication. And it was first time ever that I felt I had those 2 words combined together. I didn't know that cells basically communicate with each other and or they have this capacity. So when he told me that his specialty is in cellular communication, I was like, okay, so how do I convey this to people? How do I work with them and tell them that they have this cellular communication? So it was a generation ago already.
Yeah. And, you know, there's been a lot of research also on, like, with people who have lost, you know, an organ, right? So transplants. Right. And, you know, and what happens when, like, the heart is transplanted into someone else's body, and all of a sudden they start having cellular memories of the person. Yeah. And when they meet, like, the donor's mother or something and start talking with her, and they know exactly what she's going to say. They know, you know, that stories from the past, and they don't know how this happens. There's some really great books on this, but that's another example of how the cells are communicating, right? And they're not only communicating our own cells within ourselves, but if you had someone else's cells in you, you can actually have communication with them, right? Which is what happens with some of the transplant people. But okay, so let's stop this conversation because it's a fantastic one. I could go on and on and on about it. And but let's go ahead and get started with what we're going to do. Barb is not going to make it today. As I said, she's in Tennessee visiting her daughter. And she said she was going to try to make it, but she didn't think she was going to make it. So I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to go there. You should be able to see it now. And all of these files are in the Facebook group. So you should be able to see them there. All right. Everybody see that? Yeah. Creating stage 1 lesson?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I don't see you guys, so. All right, so last time we talked about creating lessons and creating a plan. Now remember, in this level of ZENgevity training, the 2-day live training or this 6 or 8 week home study program, we're just doing level 1, which is about how would we work with people? How would we get them to move? How would we engage in their minds, right? To create some how can we provide them with some brain fitness activities? So that's what we're really about in this training. Advanced training goes into deeper about the mind and then the emotions and then the spirit. Okay, so let's focus on just creating a state, what we call, we covered stage 1, 2, and 3 last week, remember? So we're talking about creating a stage 1 lesson. So let me read this Merce Cunningham quote, which you can see on your screen. There's no thinking involved in my choreography. I don't work through images or ideas. I work through the body. If the dancer dances, which is not the same as having theories about dancing, or wishing to dance, or trying to dance, everything is there. When I dance, it means this is what I'm doing. And what they're saying is that they're fully present. in the dance, they are fully present. And that's what we're moving towards. One of the goals of ZENgevity is to get people to kind of get connected. You know, they're not all on the same level as Revital, right? In terms of spiritual awakening, energy awakening. I mean, cellular communication is way out there for a lot of people, right? So for people who would come to your class, especially people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, this is all foreign to them, right? And so the first step is just getting them to get conscious with their body, like falling in love with their body, connecting with their body, becoming present in their body. Those are the three basic tenets of ZENgevity. And excuse me for a moment, because I don't think I started the recording. Okay.
It says recording.
It does say recording? Okay, great. Awesome. All right. So does that make sense for everybody? How we're moving into those three goals. Those are the three primary goals for a stage 1 class, is getting them connected to their body, loving their body, and really being present, right, in their body. All right, so remember we talked a lot about intuitive teaching, okay? And so using intuitive teaching to help people connect with their bodies. Because you'll see people in the classes like totally detached from their bodies. And when you notice that intuitively, you want to bring them back into their bodies. And, you know, and that's done by saying things like, you know, put your hands on your shoulders, feel your hands on your shoulders, connect with your shoulders, put your hands on your temple skin, connect with your head, you know, feel the temples, feel the head. What are you experiencing? What is the sensation that you feel? And that's all those questions are part of the inquiry process as a teacher, right? So that will help them connect with their bodies. So let's talk about, we do ZENgevity with lots of different movement forms. We use yoga moves, we use martial arts moves, mostly Aikido, Taekwondo, and blanking out here, but another one. And so Tai Chi, thank you. So we're going to, we do yoga arts, dance arts, and martial arts. So we're going to explore today about dance, okay? Because the seniors love dance. They love the other yoga and martial arts too, but dance is the key. All right, so there's elements to dance and movement, right? So the elements are space, time, force, and energy. Now, what does that mean? So space is like how you move in that space. So there's locomotor movements such as walking, running, leaping, hopping, jumping, skipping, sliding, galloping. Those are all things that you could do in your class, right? If you have a mobile class. Non-locomotor, you know, bending, twisting, stretching, swinging. We've covered juicy joints. Juicy joints is non-locomotor, right? Because it's stretching and it's bending, and there's often swinging movements in that juicy joints. And then levels. So leading the class in different levels, like low or medium or high. Now, if I was in a chair, so I'm not, say, for example, so let's first do mobile. So if the people are highly mobile, they can stand on tiptoes, reach up high in the sky. That would be a level high, right? And a medium level would be standing in mountain pose. Low level would be down, squatting on the ground, lying on the ground, you know, bent over really low, like in a crouch position. Those would be low levels. So that's what levels are. Then direction, you can see is forward, backward, sideways, diagonal, turning. A lot of times we'll do labyrinths in classes where we take sheets of paper and lay them down and create a labyrinth and have people walk forward and backwards in the labyrinth. And we always put on diagonals, right? That lights up the brain. Okay, focus, straight, curved, open, closed. A simple one would be open hands, closed hands, right? Open, close, open, close. All right, so shape. And remember, this is sort of like, I'm giving you space, but there's infinite movements, right, that fit under this space, under locomotor, levels, direction, focus. Then shape. The body can contort itself into different shapes. Yeah, small, small, medium, large, open, closed, swinging shapes, jumping shapes. So lots of different shapes. One of the great classes that I've taught that people really like is shape shifting, right? So we play with that, right? If you're a shape shifter, what shape can you shift in? Can you shift into a wolf? Can you shift into a bird and fly around the room, right? So you can play shapes with them. Parts like arms, legs, heads, toes, fingers, in isolation or combination. So we have lots of parts to our body. And so inviting them to move, these different body parts gets them really moving. And then time, fast, medium, slow, with music and without music. And I think that's a differentiation than most movement forms, is that we love to move with music, but we also love to move without music, like to stand in the silence, to feel silence, to move in silence and feel what that feels like to be in silence, right? Without music. And then force, like strong or light. So if you're doing a martial art, say, a Taekwondo movement where you're punching, right? You can punch real strong or you could punch really light. You could swing your arm. You could swing it really hard and fast and strong, or you could let it go delicately and lightly like a butterfly, right? So again, I'm giving you infinite force, space, things to do and creating movements, sharp and smooth movements. I love to move or dance with them using several balancing positions. Show students different balancing positions and experiment with those low, medium, and high levels. Students love to mirror each other's shapes and use them to make short sequence of shapes and balances. So, having them play that mirror game where they're facing each other and they have their hands up in front of each other. They're not touching, but they're moving, right? That's a great one for them. And then working individually, but also working in partners and in groups. And then communicating different emotions. I think we talked about this in an earlier lesson. I sometimes bring in a sheet of, different smiley faces, right? Or emojis that show emotion. So they might dance their anger. They might dance frustration. They might dance happiness. They might dance joy. There's lots of different emotions. And then, finding your own personal style will be key. And, you can script your classes. Some of the ZENgevity teachers are the type where they want everything in order, right? They want everything scripted. They want to know exactly what they're doing in class. They haven't fully embraced intuitive teaching yet. We hope by the time they take an advanced training that they'll move closer to that. But at the beginning, when people teach, some people need to have that scripted, and that's great. That's fine. But guiding and free movement are things that, again, come from that intuitive teaching moment. All right, we're going to switch gears here. Any questions on all that? Does that give you plenty of movements to think about?
Would it be accurate to say that basically we can go into improvisation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Improvisation is a huge fun thing to do with the class.
Okay, so basically it's some kind of I remember my improvisation classes, and I remember that they used to be the peak of the experience for me. And so basically what you're saying that we're using the class into using the body into alter their perception of themselves and reality, and basically experience different I would say different perceptions via their body experience.
Yes, it's all about sensation, right?
Right.
Noticing the sensations in our bodies, and we can create sensation. Remember, again, we talked about the brain fitness component, that the brain lights up, the brain is engaged when we're doing something we've never done before, right? And so if you do improv, you've never done that before, right? And so when you do that in a class, that really lights up that portion of the brain, and that's what we want. That's the brain fitness component right there. So yes.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so music. We're going to switch gears and go to music now. So how do you find music? So there are, you need to have the way it's been explained to me by the lawyer is that there are musical rights, okay? So for example, if you can play any kind of music you want in your classes, okay? But if you were to videotape your class, you would have to have the rights to that music to be able to play that video to someone. Okay, does that make sense? So you're allowed to use music in your classes, but you're not allowed to videotape it or show that somewhere else. If you wanted to do that, because we had a couple of people who were doing like local cable TV shows, which were great because homebound seniors were able to do their classes by watching on the television set. But they were not allowed to use music, commercial music. But they could purchase, or some of these sites that I have here have free music, like free play music. And you can go to these sites that are listed here. And remember, this is in your file section of the Facebook group. But Groove Paradise is a great one. It's very low cost. iBaudio, Partners in Rhyme, Free Play Music is free, Crank City, Premium Beat. These are all things that you can explore to find music for your classes. But again, if you have music on your iPhone, go ahead and use that in your class. But again, you can't use it on video, on TV, on the internet, in any form, if that makes sense. Okay, so any questions on music so far? Some music, what do you think is some music that seniors would really enjoy? Now remember, we're talking between like 60 and 90 here.
You nearly talk about me. I think I think music from the 60s, music for the 60s, I think the Beatles, I think, classical music, and music from their own culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the music that they used to listen to when they were on their 20s is the music that is going to, I think, move them the most.
You're absolutely right.
I think Stevie Wonders would be amazing. Stevie Wonders, I think, is going to be amazing. Michael Jackson is going to be amazing. ABBA, those 80s, the songs from the 80s and the 70s, and also
yes. So 50s, the music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, all of those. And again, getting to know the people in your class. I like to do a little survey at the beginning of the class where I ask them, what's your favorite music? What's your favorite song? Who's your favorite artist? And you'll get ideas from the people who are in that class, right? Because seniors love all kinds of music. There are seniors who listen only to classical. There are seniors who listen only to hard rock. I had a man in one of my classes, and Phil was like, he only liked hard rock, and it took a while for him to get comfortable with other forms of music that we shared, especially like yoga music, right? Like soft kind of music that you play in the background for yoga. And it was really difficult for him. But he actually began to appreciate other forms of movement, of music, even rap, right? So you think, oh, seniors aren't going to like rap, but I've played rap songs that they've loved. I play a lot of songs that is Zumba music, not that Zumba creates their own music to get around these musical rights, right? That's what they do. But they often will purchase musical rights. So there's an artist that they use a lot. I can't think of his name right offhand, but I use his music a lot, and in some of the classes. That's what I'm trying to say as I'm here looking for his song so I can figure out what it is. Okay. So Beethoven for Elise. I had an all men's class in ZENgevity at a health club, and that's what they liked the most. So I've tried all kinds of things with them. So you have to, really ask people. Royce, that's who I've been trying to think of here. So Prince Royce is a wonderful artist who has really great songs that are melodic and slower tempo, and it's easy for seniors to move to. So I use him a lot. And again, I learned about him through Zumba, but he sold musical rights to Zumba, so they can use his music in their CDs and things like that.
He was making "Stand By Me." Is that the kind of music that they were singing
Yes.
In the wedding on Saturday?
That is correct.
Really?
This is it right here. And you'll hear Prince Royce. You'll hear Royce.
When the night has come and the land is dark.
So he starts every song that he does. You heard the Royce at the very beginning? Every song starts with Royce.
Wow.
He's Prince Royce. Anyway, so you can play all different kinds of music. And I invite teachers to play and explore that, and to also respect and understand what the seniors in their specific classes, what their choices are, right? And always give them a little bit of what their choice is so that they feel comfortable, because they're more comfortable with music that, they've listened to, in their younger days, or music that they even listen to now, right? Okay, any questions on music? Because you can use whatever you would like.
I'm curious, since you're talking about people between 60 to 80, and I'm going to be 60 in 3 years, I'm thinking to myself that I don't mind. I'm basically very, very curious about new music, because I'm like, okay, what's new? And I know that I don't remember the name, but one of my favorite is some kind of a band, that have this kind of beautiful harmony. I may find it and send it to you. I think they have, one of their songs is Lash, like Lash and Me. And it's funny that you say senior, because my mom is 80, and I know that I don't think there's any specific musical genre that she would be hung up on. I think it's some kind of a blend, that they would like to have something that resonates with them from their past, but I think it's also might be something that they are, that is going to open the horizon of something that they have never heard. Yes. And maybe they're going to fall in love to see how music basically never really change,
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as I said, you want to give a little bit of the stuff that they're familiar with, but you also want to open them up to all kinds of new things, right?
Right.
Because again, we're going back to that brain fitness thing of, anytime, the brain gets more active when it's exposed to something it's not familiar with, right?
Right.
I'll do things with like Sia, things that they've probably never even heard of, but and there's actually an Israeli artist, Revital, that I use a lot that people really love. Yael Naim. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah, and whom? That's my family name. Must be one of my family.
It could be. Anyway, I've used a lot of her music. People love it.
Really?
Yes, and and I say we don't hear it over here very often, but she's an Israeli artist. She's very famous in Israel, and so I use her music, and and I give a little background to it. This is from Israel. This, I talk a little bit about the artist, and then I play the music, right? So, and then I do that for a lot of countries.
Wow, I didn't know about her. I haven't been there for about 10 years, and nobody told me anything. So.
I'll send you the link, or not the link, but the name.
She's an actor.
Pardon me?
She's an actor.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. All right, so let's move on. And Lindsay, did we cover safety?
No, we didn't.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we had already covered that. So let me go over that real quick. I wanted to do creating a routine and safety, and I don't know if we're going to have time for the other or not, but we'll see. All right, so let's cover safety issues real quick. So you really, it depends on where you teach. If you're teaching like at a senior center or council on aging, they usually go ahead and do these health checks themselves, right? Because you want to be sure that there aren't health problems or physical, you need to know about physical limitations. And you have to know for sure the doctor has recommended for them to exercise. What you don't want is someone who's just got out of heart surgery to come into your class thinking they can do this class, and they take the class and then they have a heart attack in your class. Okay, we don't want that, right? So you really have to, if you have doubts about people, you got to be sure they've checked with their doctor at first and they've gotten permission. Now, in the ZENgevity Teacher's Manual, which you'll get at the end of this training, there is a copy of a permission slip, basically, for the student to give to their doctor, to have the doctor sign off that it's okay for them to participate in an exercise class. So you really have to cover yourself, with that. Again, as I said, a lot of times if you're teaching in a YMCA or health club or senior centers, they've already done that for you. But double check and make sure. Creating your own permission slips from the doctors are usually, like if you taught at in a church basement, or you rented a room and had a ZENgevity training class, when it's just you that's responsible, then you definitely need to get some kind of permission. The senior needs to have permission from their doctor. You need to know, are there limitations for them? And then, are there health problems? And we'll get into this in a minute, but specifically with people who have had implants, right? Hip implants, knee implants, those kinds of things. And again, this file is in your Facebook group, so you'll be able to read over it. I'm not going to read every word here. We use props, and we're going to go into that in another class, but we use a lot of props in the ZENgevity classes, like balls or bubbles or different things. Now, your students may need to move while sitting in a chair the entire class, or they may be mobile enough that they can stay seated and stand. And so, knowing their limitations will help you decide how to do that. Now, if you go into a health club, they're probably all going to be able to stand. You go into a senior center, some of them may need to be seated the entire time. Some of them may be able to sit and stand, right? And so you want to design your class based on, the members in the class. So if they're all have to sit, then you would need to do movements that can only obviously be done seated. Now, there's a lot of great chair yoga moves. Has anyone taken like a class in chair yoga or anything like that before? Have you, Lindsay?
Maybe, probably once or twice, but not on a regular basis. So.
Oh, okay. So we have a lot of different things that I've used. I've been trained by Nashami, and I've gone to Kripalu and taken chair yoga classes, certification classes, so that I've incorporated some of the yoga moves and chairs into ZENgevity. So we can cover that, so that'll be good for you. All right, so if the students have any of the following symptoms while you're exercising or moving with them, make sure you have them stop and make sure they check with the doctor before returning to class. Chest pain or pressure. If you see someone holding their chest or holding their side of their head, you have to really pay attention to that and go up to them and check in with them. How are they feeling? What's going on with them? Maybe they need to sit down and rest and breathe for a while. Have they had chest pains before? Are they new to exercising or moving? Find out from them what's really going on. If they're having trouble breathing or excessive shortness of breath, any of these things I would be calling 911. Lightheadedness or dizziness, difficulty with balance or nausea, any of those things, if you're in like a senior center, you want to get someone to go and get help for this person. Don't play around with, oh, I'll be okay, I just have to sit down, or oh, I'll be okay, I have to go home. But meanwhile, they're nauseous, they're lightheaded, they're having trouble balance, shortness of breath, chest pain, any of those things, you have to act. In fact, I encourage everyone, it used to be a requirement to get your certification to take a first aid class and CPR, to have CPR certification. We did away with that because there was no way really to monitor it, and other movement programs don't have that as a requirement. So we did away with that, but I strongly encourage you, if you're going to be teaching movement classes, that you get CPR trained and first aid trained, so that you'll know what to do if you're in a situation where that happens. Now, I have been teaching for 40 years, and I've had two situations. One was an anxiety attack. I think I mentioned that in another earlier class, with a woman in her 40s. And then I had probably, I think she was like late 70s. She was having chest pain. She was fine, but she did go to the hospital, and she ended up spending the night at the hospital. But, so these things do happen. But as I said, it's rare, but it does happen. So you need to be prepared. So here's something that's really important to say at the beginning of each class, and use words that are comfortable for you and for your students, and make sure those students have signed a release form upon enrollment, right? Use the ZENgevity, again, in the ZENgevity Teacher's Manual, there's an example of a health release form, and you want to be sure everyone in your class has signed that. And it says, before beginning this or any exercise program, confer with your doctor. Do not start this fitness program if your physician or health care provider advises against it. If you experience faintness, dizziness, pain, or shortness of breath at any time while exercising, you should stop immediately. Not all exercise is suitable for everyone. The teachers, students, participants, and producers of this class do not assume liability or loss in connection with or from the exercises and instruction herein, right? So that is on that ZENgevity health release form, and you want that for your own protection, right? Teaching movement or teaching exercise, there is risk that something could happen to one of the seniors, and you need to have your protection, that you've done everything possible to keep them safe, including the safety clause. And safety is key, right? All right, so as you go down this, it's just what I've said, that a lot of the facilities already have this registration forms in process. But even so, I encourage the ZENgevity teachers to provide for their own personal release form for liability purposes. Okay, so be sensitive to your students' age. Never call your students old. The first baby boomers have started turning 65, and one boomer turns 50 every 8 seconds. So as boomers, we were always first to create a revolution, always pushing the edge, and certainly are not even considering getting old, right? So avoid language such as slowing down, golden years, elderly, aging. Active adult is regarded as pretty safe, and that's exactly what we want for our students. We want them to be active adults. So we use that terminology. Now, some of your students may be hearing impaired or sight impaired, so you might need to speak up for them and speak up loudly at all times if they're in your class, and check in with them. Can you hear me? And be sure that they can. I have a couple of ZENgevities who have very quiet voices, and when they teach their classes, the seniors can't hear them, and they really had to work on projecting their voices so that everyone, and projecting in a way that wasn't shouting, right, but was comfortable, but that the seniors could hear. And then you always want to be on time when your students arrive. I like to get there 10 or 15 minutes early, and then end on time, because they may have a doctor's appointment after class, and no one likes to have a class that, goes 10 minutes late or a half hour late. And though you're giving the verbal and visual directions, using intuitive teaching, make sure that they're performing the movements safely, they don't cause themselves injuries. For example, if someone is in a chair class and they're too far forward on the chair, they might fall off the chair. You're going to, invite them to move back on the chair, to sit back a little bit more, or to stand up and sit way back so that their back is against the back of the chair. Give them cues to keep them safe. And some will wear workout clothes, but others, many of them come to class in just casual street clothes, so they will be restricted in their movements a little bit. And I'm not going to read all this, so you guys can read this. The only thing I really request is that if they want to, so with ZENgevity, ZENgevity is often taught barefoot, like in yoga. In yoga there's bare feet. So a lot of the teachers will teach in bare feet. Seniors, especially, in their 70s, 80s, especially 80s and 90s, they don't want to be in bare feet. So we invite them to be barefoot, but if they want to wear their socks and shoes, that's perfectly fine too. The only thing we don't recommend is don't let your students wear just socks. Some of them want to take off their shoes and just be in socks, but socks are way too slippery for movement. Okay, so students with glaucoma should never let their head go lower than their waist while they're standing, nor let their head go lower than their knees while sitting. Again, I allow them to make their choices. I have glaucoma, for example, and I'm upside down in handstands all the time. So, it hasn't affected my glaucoma. But again, you want them to be safe. So you have to let them know that maybe they should keep their heads above their waist. Because there are people who believe that dropping the head like that lowers, puts too much pressure on the eyes. And especially this is true and is for someone who's had eye surgery. And a lot of seniors have laser surgery or cataract surgery, and they'll come right to class afterwards. And then you don't want them putting their head down, past their knees, because that is going to cause issues. All right, hip replacement. Avoid hip openers with people who have had hip replacements because they can damage the joint, especially if it's an older hip replacement. Sometimes you get people in their 60s who had their hips replaced in their 40s, and it's important, again, to know the limitations of the people in the class. I always ask, how's everybody feeling today? Is there anything you need to share with me to keep you safe? Has anyone here had a hip replacement? Has anyone had a knee replacement? And then you get to see those people, right? And you get to tell them sort of the warnings about that. And, always ask them to check with their doctor for specific movements they can and cannot do. So with knee replacement, caution with any movement involves the knees, especially getting down on the floor and back up on the floor, and also avoiding the hip openers. And here about stroke, you can read about that, that there's sometimes a good side and a bad side. I say that in quotes because there's really no good or bad or right or wrong in my book. But you want to have them, have their head straight back when working with neck stretches, and just ask them, they used to do like your chin to your chest and then put your head way, way back. And, we found that is actually very dangerous for the spine. So now, looking at the crown molding or looking at where the edge of the ceiling is the safest thing for people to do. And I'm going to demonstrate that when we do a class. So then rotator cuff injuries, back problems, balance problems, these are all things that you guys can read about, okay? So any questions on safety? It's really common sense, right? Common sense. All right, so next time we're going to talk about crafting a routine and how we do that. So this is in your files of the Facebook group, so you might want to check that out for next time. We'll talk about how we do centering at the beginning of class, set a focus and an intention, choosing music. I always say fail to plan to fail. You really have to plan your class. You don't need to script out every single thing, but every movement, every word, but you do have to have a plan. The meet and greet, the experience, using 3 to 5 components. We already covered the 10 components of ZENgevity. So each class you want to use at least 3 to 5 of the components. And then creating an ending and then reviewing. Okay. So that's what we're going to cover in detail next week. And we're going to begin crafting our own routines. All right. Stop share. All right. I'm back. So any questions? Are you ready to craft a routine?
No.
All right. Well,
it was clear.
okay. So hopefully if Jan doesn't come next week to teach, I will teach and you'll get a better idea. We'll do a 15-minute class so that you can really get an example of what we've been talking about. And I think that would be helpful for everybody.
It will.
Okay.
So can I have a question?
Sure.
Because I was missing on 2 of your classes by mistake. So so would it be safe to say that longevity is about mind body movement via those type of classes, activities?
I'm not quite clear what you're saying. The ZENgevity is about mind, body, emotion, spirit, and energy. Yes, those are the 5 pillars. And the classes that we do are focused on all 5 pillars. Again, the emotional, spiritual, and energetic work is at a kind of a deeper work for people, right? So I had a class that, I worked with them for 5 years, one class. And, by the 2nd year, we were doing pretty deep work. By the 5th year, we were doing things that people thought, oh my gosh, these people in their 70s and 80s can't believe they're doing this. And we actually put on a performance. We did a class it was an outdoor venue, and people, of course, loved it. But it was just a ZENgevity class. But it was, there was a lot of like using the emotional body, physical body, the mind body, spiritual body. Yeah. So yes, you can go deep with them. But again, just like with safety issues, there's safety and emotional issues, right? And there's safety and spiritual issues. And so, it's a gradual building of rapport with your students. When your students feel safe with you to explore the emotional side or the cellular communication or whatever we want to explore with our students, when they feel safe with you, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, then you can do just about anything, right? You can put it out there and they will either they will choose to do it or choose not to do it, but they'll still feel comfortable, if that makes sense. Comfortable because they feel safe with you.
Okay, how to say that? My message in a way, or my observation is that people are not maximizing their lifespan. I see that people basically are ending their life or taking far too little out of their life experience than they potentially can. Okay, so I think in a way my question is, how do you see that method that you have created contributing on that level?
Contributing on what level? On
contributing in that essence that people basically take less than their life potential and don't really maximize their lifespan. They're basically taking a bucket out of their life ocean experience.
I think that people that come to the classes, there's going to be people who just come to the class and they just show up and that's it, right? And they don't get anything and it doesn't contribute at all to their longevity. Then there are people who come to that class for 5 years, right? Every week for 5 years. I think they get huge amounts from that class, and I think it does affect their longevity. And so there's everything in between, right? It depends on how the student embraces it and how they use it. I think that, when we, again, research shows that if you move your body, if you're doing brain fitness exercises, there's a decrease in your potential to get Alzheimer's or dementia, and that we know that eating well, moving, exercising, and meditation, those are the things that will contribute to longevity. And so that's what ZENgevity does, right? We have all of those components in that class.
Okay, now that I'm listening to you, I'm thinking that would it be really appropriate to start the longevity not when people are already 60 and retire and have their programming all being carved in the stone of their brain or the rock of their brain, but to start far earlier than that, that people can basically see that they can pause the deterioration of their body, and and basically when they go into 5 years of working with you, okay, basically they took something to life with them. It's not some kind of a CPR, in the last minute, that basically supposed to, to give them an extra little rope, you see?
Yeah. So absolutely. I think people have asked me many, many times to create ZENgevity kids. I have two teachers who have developmentally disabled children, right? And they have been using some of the ZENgevity programs with their kids, right? Doing it with them, and they've seen real changes in their kids. And so that is something that's in the works. It's in the works to do. I have a lot that goes on and I haven't committed to it completely, but I've been really thinking about it, and I've been thinking about it for a couple of years, right? So it is something that I think will happen. I can't give you a time frame on that yet. I've been studying that. I've been researching it. I just, this past year, took Brain Gym. Brain Gym is the number one kids brain fitness sort of developmental thing. And then of course yoga too. Yoga is great with kids. I mean, so I think I said, I don't know if you were here, Revital, when I said that, is that sometimes people ask me, I can't believe you promote other programs as much as you do. And the truth is, yes, I promote other programs because I don't care how you go get your movement, right? But we know that moving is going to help you in terms of longevity, in terms of health, and in terms of everything. It's like the number one thing. Move your body, and then what you eat. Those are the two most important things. So, for me, it's about finding the community, the people, the teacher, the person who will connect with you in a way that you can change those parts of your brain, right? Whether you're 10 or 40 or 80, who is that person that you can connect with? What teacher? Is it a yoga teacher? Is it a ZENgevity teacher? Is it a Zumba teacher? Is it an Ageless Grace teacher? Is it an aerobics teacher? I don't care. Or maybe it's a meditation teacher. I don't care what kind of teacher. I don't care what you're doing as much as, because I don't think there's one right way. I don't think there's a good or bad to this. I think it's finding your way. It's about finding your way. And you find your way by connecting with a group or a person who will connect you with your body, and to the point where you love your body and you love yourself that so much that you will make the choices that will promote longevity. You'll make the choice to move your body. You'll make the choice to do meditation. You'll make the choice to eat healthy foods. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, as for you saying that people say that they cannot believe how much you promote other people program, I think that this is, for me, I find it completely out of integrity when people pretend to invent the wheel.
Right.
Because each and every one of us,
or the highway. Right.
Yes. I find it completely unbelievable.
Atrocious. Yes.
That people are doing it, and I think it's completely it's out of integrity because all of us, the world has not been invented with Facebook. And all the teaching is very much rely on old teaching, and when people are not in integrity with their teachers and they don't give credit to that knowledge that already been there, I find it really offensive to the integrity of the teaching of their own selves as well.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And
I do that a lot. I find it really difficult for me to shut up, okay, because not to sabotage my own branding and marketing by bringing other teachers' name into my marketing, because people find it confusing, if you're using other teacher's name or other method name, as if you're eroding out of your own credits. But I think I find it completely corrupted.
yeah.
I find it corrupted intellectually to deprive your audience from understanding where did you come from, because I can hear coaches basically quoting teaching and teachers that I know for decades. And I said, what? And when they come to class, they don't even tweet the name. And I know, and if I stay long enough, I have enough patience, I see all of a sudden that they are releasing a book, a book list, and all those people are there. And I'm saying, really?
Well, in the ZENgevity Teacher's Manual, will see a book list of recommended readings of my past experiences, right, and my past study, because I think that's important to share with people. What are our ancestral sort of roots, right, to
Right.
where we developed our own sort of show or our own program. And again, it's for me, it's not about one way or the right way. It's about finding your way, and
giving tribute to those that you have learned from, or those who have schooled you, I think, or to the sources of your information. I think it's really, really important or essential if you want to bring your teaching to a real high level of mastery.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're just how to say that, you're just a clone.
Right. All right, so we got to end. It's 5:04. I got it. I totally agree with you. So let me just ask Lindsay, any questions, any thoughts, anything you want to share?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, good. All right, so we know what's up for next week. Study. Think about how you would craft a routine, what you would do, who you would work with. We're getting down to a few more weeks of this, right? And remember, thank you so much for helping me figure out how a home study might work, right? So we're still working on it. And I'm not completely convinced it's the format that I want to use, because there's something with like a movement form like this as ZENgevity. I know there's people who do all kinds of exercise trainings, even lifting weights programs, all kinds of things go on in the fitness world online like this. But with ZENgevity, because it has this like deeper stuff, I'm not sure it transfers, and I'll ask you that at the end, as much as like a live experience of teaching. But we'll see. We'll see next week when we teach some classes and see how that goes. Let me just check in again. Where are you? You're in Baltimore, right, Revital?
Yes.
And Lindsay, where are you again? Catonsville. Oh, so you're not all that. Would you guys be interested if we had a class in person? Would you want to participate in something like that? It would have to be on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Oh, in person, it means, yeah, but it's good to schedule it. Yeah, my husband just told me that he wants to pick me up on Saturday, so yeah, that's.
Oh no, and I'm not talking about this week. It'll be in the future. It won't, not anytime soon. We'd have to find a location that works for everybody. It could be someone's house, but I'm not centrally located. I'm up near. I'm near Cecil County. Mm-hmm. I'm up.
Where, in Maryland?
Yeah, I'm in Maryland, but I'm, on the border of Cecil County. I'm up near, it's called Habity Grace, Maryland.
Oh, Habity Grace. Oh.
Yeah, so, I'm like 45 minutes from Baltimore, downtown Baltimore. Or Catonsville, 45 minutes to Catonsville. So I'm not centrally located, but Barb is, and she might be able to get a room at the Y for us, but that's in Bel Air, Maryland. So that's another possibility. Or if one of you wanted to offer a space in your home, that's another possibility. So let's all just think about this. It's just an idea that I'm floating out as a possibility. And let's think about it, and we'll talk more about it, see if we can do that. All right, have a great week, and we'll see. Oh, and I just want to say that if you're interested in Facebook Lives, I'm doing Facebook Lives regularly in the Be Boldly Brilliant Facebook group and in the 100-day program with Ginny Presley Robinson. So, check those out. I'm giving lots of good info about how to do Facebook Lives in there. And I'm going to be opening my coaching group. I only do that twice a year. I have 2 coaching groups, and I'm going to be opening that up again in June. I do it in June and September. So if you're curious about that, then check it out. All right. Have a great week. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.